share.
Okay, you can share now.
Okay. Hello, Asma. How are you?
How are you? I'm fine. How are you, Miss
That's a,
Fargus?
that's a great. So, are you ready for today's session? Did you prepare
Oh,
your coffee and tea and snacks?
I prepared رز بلبن.
Oh, wow. It's delicious.
Yes.
Okay. بالهنا والشفا حبيبتي. Okay. So, let's start our session with
Okay.
something inspirational to refresh our minds and to have a good start, inshallah. I hope you like it. And tell me when you can hear the sound.
Like me.
This is a story of a man. I hope you like it.
If
And
enough people like me,
okay.
then I am. How many people following you on Twitter? I got to get my following up. I got to get my friends up. Because if I have popularity, oh, y'all got quiet again. Let me show you how many people follow me. Do you know Bishop started following? Girl, Bishop followed me. So I am because of who follows me, who likes me. Popularity-based identity. Ooh. Performance-based identity. If you do this, you'll be the Son of God. If they like you, you'll be the Son of God. If I give you enough possessions, you'll be. Now, let me show you something. I'm teaching just do it, okay? And yet I'm criticizing doing it to define who you are. Well, I'm confused. Should I do it or not do it? You just said just do it, and then you turned around and said not to define myself by what I do. Can I critique my own text? Which way is it, Reverend? Do I do it or not do it? The problem is not about doing it, it is why you do it. What I am criticizing is putting the doing before the being, so that you think that if I do this, I will be somebody. If I buy this, I will be somebody. If they like me, I will be. You got it backwards. The people that know their God shall be and then do. And because your doing doesn't come from the deeper place of being, it hasn't worked for you. Because you are who you are, you can do what you can do. But if you're trying to find out who you are by doing things, you will never find out who you are by doing. You'll have to start with being. So are you getting it? I want you to see this. I don't want to lose you in this, because the difference between the two determines the direction of your destiny. If you're always seeking a certain status to validate who you are, you're never going to have peace. You have to know who you are, and then you can climb to the status. You can't climb up to find yourself. You have to find yourself so you can climb up. Oh God, you can't climb up to find yourself. You have to find yourself so you can climb up. So you can be who you are before anybody knows who you are. So that means you could be rich while you're broke. You could be healed while you're sick. You could be loose while you're bound. It does not yet appear what you shall be. It hadn't showed up what you shall be. But you got to be it before you can get it. Woman, thou art. I know it looks like you're tied up. I know you've been bowled over for 18 years. I know your conditions don't validate you, but let me tell you about who you are. You are loose. Not gonna be loose, not shall be loose. You're loosed on the inside before you're loosed on the outside. I'm delivered right now. I'm whole right now. I am it, so I can do it.
So can you tell me what did you get from this video? Are you
That was
preparing coffee or sleeping? Yeah.
It was deep.
Yeah, too deep. Yes. Yeah, of course. No, it's too deep. We are free. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us free. Our souls are free. We don't need others to tell us who we are, but we should know ourselves first. We must know our abilities, our goals, our objectives, our aims in life before anything. And after that, we can specify what shall we do after that to not to prove for others who we are, but to succeed, to achieve ourselves, to be the person we need to be. So what about you? What did you get from this video?
Yeah, mostly what you said, that we need to focus on ourselves, on our own goals, before we focus how others sees us or how other can like us. Or so this is a consequence of what we do or of who we are. So we shouldn't look for it. Whether we get it or not, it should not be our goal.
Yeah, that's it. So it's not the purpose to tell others or to show others what we will reach, but it's our great happiness and success to prove that we are free to do what we need. Everything we need, we can do it. No one can have restrictions upon us if we want to achieve something, if we want to achieve our dreams, to succeed, to do whatever we think it will be, inshallah. Okay, so let's move to the pronunciation part, which I like the most because it's very beneficial, I think, for all of us. And today it's about intonation. And after that, we're gonna move to our session for today, inshallah. Okay. So I hope you are ready. I think you are not ready till now. I don't know why. Some people are still sleeping.
Might need your help. Hi, I'm Kai. Welcome to Oxford Online English. In this lesson, you can learn about intonation in English.
How important is intonation? Let's see. Look at a sentence. Do you need some help? It's a simple question. But by changing the intonation, you can change the meaning completely.
So why is intonation important? Why is it important?
Because it may change the meaning.
Yeah, of course, exactly. When we talk about pronunciation or when we put intonation in different parts of a sentence or a question, of course, the meaning is totally changed. That's it. Okay.
It can be a simple question where you're really offering to help. Do you need some help?
It can be a rhetorical question where you don't really think the person needs help, but you want to be polite. Do you need some help?
It can show that you're annoyed with the person you're talking to. Do you need some help?
It can be sarcastic. Do you need some help?
It can show surprise that the other person might need your help. Do you need some help? There are other possibilities too.
You can see that intonation is a very powerful tool. Controlling your intonation is important for communication in spoken English. So, let's start at the very beginning. What actually is intonation?
So intonation is important for two reasons. The first one, it changes the meaning of the sentence. And the second and the most important one, it's important for what, my dear friends? Are you still there?
Yeah. I think if the words is a powerful
Yes, for what? For a word which starts with the letter C. For?
Right?
No, for communication. When you understand the meaning of the sentence, of course, you can understand the others and communicate with them in return. Okay, so let's move to the meaning of intonation.
There are 7 possible intonation patterns in English.
How many
Rising.
patterns are there in the intonation? Patterns. How many patterns are there?
7.
7. Excellent. أيوة كده. Rising,
Falling.
falling. Rising, falling. Falling, rising. Flat. High. Low. So what are they?
The most important are
what
the
are
first...
they? Let's say them together. To be active and energetic. What are they? Rising, yeah. Falling, yes. Rising, falling. Yeah.
rising,
Excellent.
flat,
Yeah. Flat, high, and low. And what are the most important for? Rising, falling, and falling, rising. These are the most important patterns for intonation, and let's see together why are they important. Okay.
4. Rising, falling, and combinations of rising and falling tones. Flat tones, including high and low tones, aren't common and don't have many uses, so we won't talk about them today.
However, rising and falling tones can each have many different meanings. Keep this in mind. One intonation pattern does not mean one thing. The same intonation can have different meanings in different situations. Also, intonation is flexible. There are rules, but the rules are not 100% fixed. Different people speak in different styles. Let's practice. Here's a word. Let's try saying the word with different intonation patterns. Repeat after me. Rising. Where? Falling. Where? Rising, falling. Where? Falling, rising. Where?
Let's try one more time with 2 words. How many? Rising. How many? Falling. How many? Rising, falling. How many? Falling, rising. How many?
If you can pronounce these 4 intonation patterns, you can already do most of what you need in English. So, how do you use these intonation patterns? The most basic rule is that you use a falling tone to show the end of a sentence. For example, I live in Madrid. She's a lawyer. We might be a bit late.
You can use a rising tone to show that your sentence isn't finished yet. For example, I live in Madrid, but I was born in Canada. She's a lawyer, although she isn't working at the moment. We might be a bit late because I don't finish work until 7.
So why do we use falling tones and rising tones? Why do we use falling tones? To tell what? Focus, please. Yes, to tell the end of a sentence, okay? What about the rising tone?
That the sentence is
For a
not finished.
question, or that sentence is not finished yet?
Yeah, the sentence is not finished yet. So it means we are gonna complete the sentence or we're gonna complete our talk, okay? So we have to know the difference to tell our learners inside the classroom why intonation is important. Why do we use rising intonation, falling intonation, rising, falling, or falling, rising? Rising because it's important to tell them the reason why. Why do they choose this here and that there and so on, okay?
That's the most basic rule. And it's important. If you don't use rising and falling tones in the right places, people won't understand whether you've finished speaking or not. However, there are many other ways to use these intonation patterns. Let's look at another. Did you get some bread?
I thought you were going to get the bread.
How are we going to make sandwiches if we don't have any bread?
We can go to the bakery and buy some sandwiches there.
But I think the bakery is closed on Saturdays.
It's not Saturday today. It's Sunday.
Oh. Can you work out what was going on in that dialogue? After the first question, did you get some bread? You heard 5 sentences. Listen again if you need to. Can you hear the intonation? Before, you heard that you use falling intonation at the end of your sentence. But here, the pattern is often the opposite. I thought you were going to get the bread. Do you know why that is?
This is our second rule about intonation. You use a falling tone to show that information is new, and you use a rising tone for old information. In this sentence, the bread has already been mentioned, so it's old information, and you pronounce it with a rising tone. However, the word you gets a falling tone because this is the new idea in the sentence.
Let's look at the next example. How are we going to make sandwiches if we don't have any bread? Here, the idea is the same. The bread is old information, so you pronounce it with a rising tone. The sandwiches are new information. This is the first time anyone has talked about sandwiches. New information gets a falling tone. In the next sentence, which word is old information and which word is new information? Sandwiches are old information because we already mentioned them. So pronounce sandwiches with a rising tone. The bakery is new information because this is the first time anyone has mentioned it. So bakery has a falling tone.
In the last 2 sentences, the pattern is reversed, but the idea is the same. But I think the bakery is closed on Saturdays.
So we have 2 reasons for using rising intonation and falling intonation. The first one, we used fall intonation for what? Do you remember? We used the falling intonation in the first case to tell others that.
To end
Yes,
the sentence?
to end the sentence. But in the second case, we use the same falling intonation to talk about new or old information. In the second case.
New information?
Yeah, the new information. So the situation is
New
reversed.
information.
Yeah, so we use the falling intonation to tell people that we're going to finish a sentence, and we can use it in a second case to tell people about the new information, okay? What about the rising intonation? In the first case, we used the rising intonation to tell people that we are going to
Sentence is not finished.
Yeah, we are going
sentence
to
or our
complete our talk or the conversation, but in the second case, we tell people about old or new information.
All the information.
Yes, that's right. The old information. Excellent.
Thank you.
It's not Saturday today, it's Sunday. In the first sentence, the bakery is now old information, so it gets a rising tone. The new information, with a falling tone, comes at the end of the sentence. You can see the same pattern in the second sentence. The old information, Saturday, comes first, and the new information, Sunday, is at the end of the sentence.
If you want more practice with this, go back to the dialogue. Pause after each sentence and repeat, trying to copy the intonation. Pay attention to the way intonation changes on the same word as it changes from new to old information. Now let's look at a very important use of intonation, questions. Where did you go for your vacation?
I went to Dubrovnik.
Is that in Croatia?
Yes, on the coast. Have you ever been?
No, never. Did you have a good time?
Very nice, though it's quite touristy.
You got back yesterday, right?
Yeah, late in the evening.
Are you feeling tired?
No, not too bad actually. In the dialogue, you heard 6 questions. 3 of them had rising tones and 3 had falling tones. Do you know why the intonation is different in different questions?
Sometimes, when you're asking a question, you have no idea of the answer. You're asking a question to find out new information. In this case, the question has a falling tone. Where did you go for your vacation? Have you ever been? Did you have a good time? Sometimes, when you ask a question, you already have some idea of the answer. You're asking a question to check something or to confirm that your idea is right.
In this case, the question has a rising tone. Is that in Croatia? I think Dubrovnik is in Croatia, but I'm asking to make sure. You got back yesterday, right? I had an idea that you got back yesterday, and I'm confirming this with you. Are you feeling tired? You told me you got back late in the evening, so I guess you're tired. This means that the intonation of a question can change depending on the situation. If you use a falling tone, this becomes a question to find new information. This means you really have no idea whether Dubrovnik is in Croatia or not, and you want to know.
You can ask, where did you go for your vacation? If you ask this with a rising tone, it could suggest that you knew the answer before and you just want a reminder. You're checking something you already knew. You're not asking for completely new information.
So what is the third case for using falling and rising intonation? In the previous 2 cases, we said that we use falling intonation to tell the people or tell others that. So can you tell me?
To end the sentence or our
Yes,
talk?
the first, yes, exactly. So the first case is we tell people we are going to end the sentence. Excellent. What about the second case of falling intonation? To talk about
New information.
new information. Excellent. And the third case with questions. Do we know the answer or we don't know the answer?
We don't know the answer.
Yes, we don't know the answer. And here, I think this is another case which is different from our perspectives. We used to know that we use falling intonation with yes, no questions and rising intonation with WH questions. But I think here it's not the same. We have noticed that it's the same questions are yes, no questions, but with the same questions we use rising and falling intonations, but they mean they have different meanings. So what about the rising intonations? We have taught until now, or we have learned that there are 3 cases for rising intonation. What is the first case? What was the first case about? We used rising intonation for what? Can you tell me, please? Is it for Finishing a sentence, or we're going to complete our talk or conversation? The first case.
Gonna to complete our conversation.
Yes, so the first case of rising intonation, we use rising intonation to tell others that we're gonna complete our conversation. What about the second case? Is it for old or new information? The second case.
All the information.
Yes, excellent. What about the third case, which is the questions, with yes, no questions? When we use rising intonation, does it mean we know the answer or we don't know the answer?
Know the answer.
Excellent. So each time when you listen to a pronunciation video, you have to write down the reasons for using the rising intonation and the reasons for using falling intonation. And as you have noticed before from the very beginning of the video, we noticed that there is not a fixed rule for intonation. We can use rising or falling intonation for a lot of ways or with different patterns. It depends on what we mean to transmit to the listener or the message from this sentence or question, okay? So let's follow up.
Using this intonation will help you to sound more natural, but it doesn't change the meaning of the question. However, there are many other intonation patterns in questions which do have different meanings. Let's look. What a fantastic film! Wasn't it great?
Are you insane? It was the worst movie I've seen all year.
Why would you say that? It was amazing.
Forget it. It's 2 hours of my life I'm never getting back.
Why don't we get something to eat? Your pick.
How about we just go home? I'm pretty tired. Again, you heard many questions in the dialogue. Can you see what was different this time? Before we tell you, think about a question. What does a question do? Most likely, you thought, a question asks for information. That's sometimes true, but actually, you can use questions to communicate many other ideas.
In these cases, a question might not need an answer. For example, you can use questions to make a comment about something. Wasn't it great? You can use questions to criticize. Are you insane? You can use questions to make suggestions. Why don't we get something to eat?
Can you remember the intonation in these questions? To make a comment about something, use a falling tone. Why would you say that? Doesn't he look smart? Isn't it delicious? To criticize someone, use a rising tone. Have you lost your mind? Why would you do that? Are you really that stupid?
To make a suggestion, use a falling tone. How about we just go home? Why don't you call and ask what's happening? Remember that intonation is flexible, and that's especially true here. You can also make a suggestion with a rising tone. How about we just go home? Can you hear the difference? How do you think it changes the meaning?
The suggestion with the rising tone sounds more like a real question because it sounds more indirect and hesitant. The suggestion with the falling tone doesn't sound so much like a question. It sounds more confident and direct. This brings us to our last point. You can use intonation to express many different emotions.
There's one intonation pattern we haven't talked about yet, rising-falling intonation. You can use this to express different feelings, positive or negative. Look at one word. You can use a rising-falling tone to sound excited. Really? You can use it slightly differently to sound annoyed. Really? You can use it to sound surprised.
Really?
Really?
Yes.
Can you hear the difference between these three? Listen once more. Really? 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 You use a rising falling tone each time, but in a slightly different way. To sound excited or surprised, you start and finish higher, but to sound annoyed, the tones are lower. Really? Really? To sound surprised, you often make the rising tone longer. Really?
You can also use other tones to express some emotions. For example, you can use a rising tone to express doubt. Really? You can use a falling tone to sound sarcastic. Really? Let's practice. You'll hear the same question with 5 different kinds of intonation. Which emotion am I expressing? Did you? Did you? Did you? Did you? Did you?
Okay, we hope you learned something useful about English intonation. We have a question for you. Is intonation in your language similar to English or not? Let us know in the comments because we're curious.
Remember that you can find more free English lessons on our website, Oxford Online English.
Okay, so do you think we use intonation, we use a fixed rule with rising, falling, and falling, rising intonation, or it depends on the meaning of the sentence which we want to communicate or tell others about? What do you think about intonation?
It depends about what would we like to say or to communicate
Yes.
with others.
Yes, that's exactly what you mentioned, Mai. So intonation doesn't depend on is it question, is it yes, no question, or a WH question. Although there is some specific rules for WH questions and yes, no questions in some cases, but still the rule is not fixed. It depends on the meaning we want to transmit to others. It depends on the way we want to show, is it a surprise, is it a comment, is it a suggestion or what? And there is another important thing related to intonation. Have you watched the facial expressions of the man and the woman when they express the different kinds of sentences and questions?
Yes, their facial expressions changes according to what they are communicating.
Yeah, that's very important. So again, when we use or when we communicate with others, we don't depend only on using a grammar or using our language, either the verbal language only. We use both the verbal and the non-verbal language. We use our facial expressions. We use intonation, either falling, rising, rising, falling, falling, or rising. And and we can vary we can vary the intonation on the same word or one word to all the patterns of intonation according to the message or the meaning we want to tell others about. Okay, so I hope you like this video about intonation today, and next time inshallah we're gonna talk about another part of intonation or of pronunciation. Okay, so did you like the video?
Yes.
Did you like the video? Okay.
Yes.
Welcome, Amani, Asma, Mirvat. Welcome, Mirvat. Mirvat has attended today. So I hope you will enjoy today's session, inshallah. It's about classroom observation. And do you remember from the very beginning, information was a part of what? Do you remember?
Communication, of course.
Communication and what? Communication and dealing with others and facilitating and guiding others. All these things were part of what? Do you remember? Yeah, mentoring. Yeah, exactly. So all the time we are taking parts of the mentoring process or the mentorship. Okay. So today, inshallah, we're going to deal with Module 2. This is one of the most important modules, I think, because it's all about what's going to happen inside the classroom, how can we observe our learners, our mentees, even our families at home, our sons, our children. It's all about how to observe others all the time. But of course, we are familiar with some kinds of observation, but today we're gonna learn about them in details. I hope you will like them, inshallah, okay? And please tell me when you can see the screen, okay?
We can see the screen.
Okay, that's great. And because we have only a few minutes till the other session or the coming session, do you remember what we have learned before quickly? Just the points, just mentioning the points. Do you remember?
Yes, the difference between mentorship and supervision.
Yeah, the difference between mentorship and supervision. That's great. What else? Okay, what else? Excellent. Yes.
Using Bloom taxonomy and
using Bloom's taxonomy, and do you remember the ABCD model? Yes. Okay. What else? What else?
Strategies of pronunciation.
Strategies of pronunciation. Exactly. What else? Very good. What else?
Gradual release model.
Excellent. The gradual release model. So let's see together today's module overview. In this module, inshallah, participants learn about the initial stages of the process of mentoring, including the pre-observation meeting and how to be active listeners. Participants also get introduced to classroom observation, and this is the most important point for today. And the gradual release method. This is the surprise for today. We have learned it about before, so this will save our time, inshallah. Okay. So our objectives for today, by the end of the session, inshallah, we will be able to identify the purpose of the pre-observation meeting, distinguish between different observation techniques. So we will learn, inshallah, the purpose of the pre-observation meeting. The second, the difference between different observation techniques. 3, apply active listening skills during mentor-mentee meetings. And what do we mean by mentor-mentee? Is it only for mentors or for what? Give me examples of mentor-mentee meetings. What do we mean by mentor? Yes, trainers and trainees, teacher and students, maybe parents and their children. Yes, maybe 2 friends or